Hi everybody, this is Sean with Axiom Tutoring, and today I'm going to be your GCSE Maths tutor. I'd like to introduce you to the magic of multipliers, and multipliers are little numbers that can drastically reduce the effort of calculating percentages and even percentage changes. As the name suggests, they're numbers that you multiply by a quantity to get a percentage of that quantity. Let's look at them in action. Say that we want 60% of 120. There's a few ways that you might approach this based on what you've been taught before. For non-calculator papers, you'd work out 10% first by dividing this number by 10. That's 12. And then to get 60%, you would multiply that by 6 and get 72. Another way you might approach it is to turn 60% into a fraction, 60 over 100 times 120. Then we can simplify this fraction to 3 over 5. And then you can divide 120 by 5 and multiply it by 3. So 120 divided by 5 is 24. 24 times 3 is also 72. The multiplier method is optimal for calculator use and drastically reduces the effort. And most problems that you encounter that have to do with percentages are about picking the right multiplier. So I can't stress enough that this is probably the most important concept you'll learn on this topic. 60 over 100 is the same as 0.6. So 60 over 100 times 120 is the same as 0.6 times 120. And if we put this in our calculator, right away we'll get 72. Let's construct a few other multipliers. Let's say that we want to work out 22% of 54. Well, 22% is just 0.22. And you multiply that by 54. And in your calculator, you should get 11.88. What about 43% of 11? Rather than working out 10% and then 40% and then 1%, we can just do 0.43 times 11. So the general rule is that these two numbers after the decimal point represent this percentage here, and 0.43 times 11 is 4.73. Let's do a few examples. 10% of 95. Well, we know that 10% is just a number divided by 10. So we know that it'll be 9.5. But as a multiplier, 10% is 0.1. 0.1 times 95 is 9.5. What about 50% of 1,200 grams? Now, sometimes the questions will involve units, and your answer should be in those same units. 50% is just 0.5. 0.5 times 1,200 is 600, and don't forget the grams. What about 45%? Well, if we agree that 0.4 is 40% and 0.5 is 50%, then 0.45, which is between them, is 45%, and we just do 0.45 times 820. Try that yourselves in your calculators, and you should get 369. How about 37%? That's just 0.37 times 2,500. So 0.37 times 2,500, you should get 925. Now, where multipliers really shine are questions like these, questions where you have a percentage greater than 100, or where you have awkward decimals in your percentages. Let's think about 251% of 120. Well, if 100% of 120, that is the whole 120, is 120, then 251% naturally is going to be greater than 120. To get a number greater than 120 through multiplication, you have to times by a number bigger than 1, because 2 times 120, we can agree, would double that amount, and that would be an increase of 100%. 251 is 2.51 times 120. And in our calculators, we should get 301.2. How about 108%? Let's think about this one intuitively. 100% is 1 whole plus 8%. 8% is 0.08. So the multiplier for 108% is 1.08. We multiply that by 200. 1.08 times 200 should give you 216. Now, how about finding the correct multiplier for something like this? 32.65%. Well, let's think about 32% first. That would be 0.32. 33% would be 0.33. 32.65 is somewhere between those two. So we just take the 6 and the 5 and we add them at the end of the number. These two digits still always represent the whole percentage, and any digits after that are decimal percentages. So the multiplier is 0.3265, and we multiply that by 300. 0.3265 times 300, and you get 97.95. So by now you can probably see how useful multipliers are in solving percentage problems. They also allow us to quickly compare quantities such as these. 25% of 90, the multiplier for 25% is 0.25, and we multiply that by 90. 0.25 times 90 is 22.5, and we want to compare that to 28% of 82. Well, 28% as a multiplier is 0.28, and we multiply that by 82, and we get 22.96, and we can see that this is clearly larger. So 28% of 82 is greater than 25% of 90. Let's try another one. 30% of 105. We find the multiplier for 30%. 0.3 has the effect of working out 30%, and we multiply it by the number whose percentage we're trying to calculate. And we should get 31.5. The multiplier for 32% is 0.32, and we multiply that by 98, and we get 31.36. Now, let's try an actual exam question first we're going to solve it the long way, the way that you've probably been taught so far, or the way that you will have been taught if you watched our previous videos. And then we're going to see how we can make this drastically easier using the magic of multipliers. Ali buys a sofa for £540. She pays a deposit of 15%. That means she doesn't pay all of the money yet. She pays a fraction or percentage of its value, and then she pays off the rest in monthly payments of £17. And we want to know, with that deal, how many payments it would take until she owns the sofa. So we start with 540, and we work out 15% of 540. Now, we're still using multipliers here. 15% of 540 is 0.15 times 540. Please try that in your calculators. And that is £81. That's how much she's paying right now. And we want to subtract that from the full price of the sofa. So we do 540, take away 81, and that's 459. Now this remaining balance will be spread out over numerous payments of £17 each. How many payments? Well, we do £459 into £17. And we should get 27. That means it will take 27 monthly payments to clear this balance. So just to make sure we understand what happened there, there was a sofa that was £540. She paid £81 up front, and then the remaining quantity of 459 in payments of £17. And 17 times 27 is 459. Now, let's see how we could have made that even easier using multipliers. We're looking at the same question, but in a slightly different way. 100% of the sofa's value is £540. We are going to pay, or Ali is going to pay, 15% of that. So this much of it has been taken off. That will leave 85%. So 85% is what's left to pay, and that's the bit that we're interested in. 85% as a multiplier is 0.85 times 540. 85% is the amount still left to pay off after the 15 has been paid. So we just do 0.85 times 540, and we should get 459. And then we can just take 459 divided by 17 and get 27. And we got that much quicker than we got it the previous time. And that's to illustrate that multipliers are really important. And most percentage problems come down to finding the right multiplier. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.